Hello everyone, welcome along to the Porsche Community Legends Race Together program. Plenty of serious action in terms of the sim world from Porsche over the last couple of weeks, but this is about you. This is about the community getting together and having some fun on a Tuesday evening in Europe, but around the world there are people joining from everywhere to join us. In this current situation, this is pretty much the only thing that we've got. Thank you so much to Fanatec, one of our partners, and of course Porsche Motorsport for putting this on alongside Race Room. So the idea is that each week we open up a qualifying leaderboard, hot lapping session to qualify into this particular competition, and therefore of course you will expect to see the usual names of the Race Room world at the very top of our leaderboard. But we also invite some other drivers as well, namely some very well-known influencers. Don't expect them to be at the sharp end of the grid, but they're here to inject their enjoyment into proceedings and, of course, help us spread the word that this is the place to be on a Tuesday night and enjoy watching this fantastic competition. So the very first week, we'll be racing around Hockenheim's new Grand Prix circuit in the Porsche 911 GT3 R. In 1 week's time, we will turn back the clock and jump into the 911 Carrera Cup 964 from the 1990s and race around the very claustrophobic Silverstone National Circuit.
I feel tired. It's 4:30 in the morning. We just arrived at the track. It's going to be a long and exciting day. High temperatures and maybe some rain.
Everybody is just waiting for this moment. It's really special, starting by night.
Adding in the heat and all the challenges and an amazing field as well. I think we're in for a very cool race.
Just mega to start on pole. Matt did an incredible job yesterday.
This race is so special to me. When we look at emotions yesterday, obviously getting Porsche's first pole.
We're all here, we love it, we can't get enough of it, and now we're going to put ourselves through it for the next 12 hours.
We've had a clean race so far. We're leading the class by some margin, so that's really good. I started the race and had good pace, kept with some of the leading packs.
We're about almost 4 hours into the start of a 12-hour race. Lawrence is in the car at the moment, and he's circulating really well. Just gone over the halfway point of the race, and I think at the moment we're running pretty strong. P2 and Pro-Am. CJ's out there at the moment doing a great job. If the weather changes, it will be difficult for everyone, but we'll wait and see. I'm not sure how close the rain is or if it's going to rain. We'll welcome the cloud and we'll just keep chipping away.
We survived 12 hours in the hardest, craziest conditions that I think I've ever raced in. The team perfect on the strategy, perfect on the pit stops. First time we step up the Pro-Am and we win it, so it's just unbelievable.
Grove Racing, it's a dream. They are customers since so many years and now they win the Pro-Am class.
To come here and do that is fantastic. Do it, my son. Bloody great. Bloody great.
Just one example of the success that the GT3 car has had over the last couple of years. Obviously, such a well-used vehicle because GT3 racing is so widely popular across the whole of the world. So we should start with GT3 racing, and then we should start with a man that not only has driven this car to success over the years, but also owns 3 of them as part of a team that he's put together. So team owner and Porsche factory driver Earl Bamber, all the way from New Zealand, joins us this evening as my expert co-commentator. It must be very early for you, Earl.
A bit difficult with connection at the moment, so
yeah, absolutely. All working well. You do live kind of 35, 40 years behind the rest of the world over in New Zealand, right?
Unfortunately, out on all this test racing, so I really want to get involved, and obviously a bit of commentary is probably the closest. I've been following everyone, what they're doing and how they're getting on as well with the user series. This is fantastic to put together, making the Porsche community and getting everyone together. I've even seen my own race car driving around the track, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you've got a Chinese driver in your car, which shows the breadth of the field that we have here this evening. Qualification obviously open worldwide, and fantastic to have worldwide competitors everywhere around. Earl, tell us a little bit more about the GT3 R and what makes it such a special car.
Yeah, it's a fantastic car. Obviously, it's a very important car for us at Porsche. We use for customer racing, but all the big races around the world. And the new 911 GT3 R, we've managed to win nearly all the big races. Last year was Spa 24, Bathurst 12 hour, and then obviously the Intercontinental GT Challenge. We got some fantastic results, and the thing's just amazing to drive. The electronics, the downforce that it has now, the power, it's really, really cool. And whenever anyone jumps in it, you always talk about that little smile that you get, you know, that Porsche feeling. Well, definitely that's what that car has, and you love doing laps in it whenever you get the chance to drive it. So I'm a little bit sad that all of them are locked away at the moment, but you know, hopefully we can get out, and it's great to see them all on track. The liveries are fantastic from all the drivers out there right now, so it's really cool to see.
And we just saw a little video about the success that Porsche had at the most recent 12-hour event, I suppose, that took place, the Bathurst 12 hours. You chose that video for obvious reasons.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, whenever we watch those videos back, it definitely, you know, brings back a few goosebumps. In 2019, managed to win the race, and it was the first time a Porsche had won at the mountain, which was really, really cool to manage to achieve that. Unfortunately, on the driver's seat, but behind the operation, you know, owning it and being team manager that weekend was really, really cool. You see a different side of motor racing. It's really, really tough. It's not easy, you know, to run those sorts of events, but it was definitely a big learning curve, and I really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed the fight. I can even see, oh, there we go. I can even see my own race car that I drove at Macau. I've got a few different cars in this race. I think I've seen now 3 or 4 different liveries that I've managed to drive. But, you know, this is what makes this really cool. And yeah, Bathurst was amazing, but there was also many other amazing races last year, like Spa and, you know, also winning the Intercontinental Challenge, all as myself just goes around.
Here's Jack Keithley. Expect to see him at the sharp end of the field. We're just getting a little bit used to these liveries. I think they are all liveries that are used in the real world, that obviously been adopted by these sim drivers. Watching the way the car behaves on track with these drivers, it does seem to be replicated so very well. The way it turns in and rotates is just like you would expect to see at Hockenheim on a nice summer's day.
Yeah, I mean, the level of gaming has changed so much in the recent years. I mean, when we first all started gaming, I think I remember the first thing that I ever played was Gran Turismo 1 on PS4. I think we can all remember that. And over the years, it's got you know, more and more complicated and sophisticated. We've got a massive simulator at Porsche, which we use to go before we go to the track and afterwards, and we can gain so much vital information about it. It's really becoming so close to the real world in many, many ways. It's really, really impressive, and obviously now it's a vital tool. And during these tough times with the virus, it's amazing that we've still got motor racing, and it's really tough for us normal drivers because we've been getting a hard time by all these professional sim racers.
Yeah, exactly. These pro drivers entering these races and then being stood up and shown up by the sheer professionalism. What is the differences that you experience as a real world driver to a sim driver? What's not necessarily missing, but what's different?
I mean, what's different is obviously we miss that sensation. You miss the G-forces, and you use a different, you know, sensory motor group to basically drive the simulator. A lot more reliant on your eyes. Rather in the car, you're more reliant on your body and what you're feeling. So this is really, really different for us. It's completely different. And obviously we've got to learn a new sensory motor group compared to the sim racers that have grown up driving in that manner, in that way.
Absolutely. As somebody who's stepped into sim racing, actually participating for the first time in this confinement, it does seem I was much better in the real world than I am in sim racing. I think there's a lot of drivers saying the same thing at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely have to agree with you on that one. I'm definitely much better in the real world than the sim world. Like I said, I haven't been on a sim rig for a while, and I'm hopefully going to get one next week.
You guys have got a competition in New Zealand, haven't you, coming up?
Yes, we do. I just see that qualifying's just about started, so I guess all the lap times are reset, and now we're going to see who can really throw down the good lap times.
Right, let's follow Jack Keithley then. Jumping all kinds of different platforms over the last couple of weeks has Jack Keithley, Williams eSports driver, as we switch to Julian Kunze. I think Julian's just slightly up the road from Jack, so let's see how he gets on as he comes into the second sector of the lap, rejoin the old track. I can't believe I keep referring to it as the old track, but I'm just still fixed on that amazing blast through the forest that they used to have to do all the way back in the 60s and 70s. Brave men, although this facility is now one of the very best in Europe, even if it does miss out sadly on hosting Grand Prix. Flicks himself back onto the original part now as he heads towards the stadium section of the lap. Keeps the car almost over the white line by the looks of things. And okay, not quite sure how he managed to do that, but he seems to have maybe bailed out of that lap and he's going to go for a new one. I think he did, yeah. So Julian not getting himself a time as yet, and reset, and now starting a lap again. And again.
Yeah, we were speaking about this in earlier in the week about how difficult it is for these guys to get these laps in. And just like what we have in the real world, and I would say Hockenheim is notorious for it, there is track limits. Why I've seen these guys reset themselves is because they're trying to get turn one, that notorious turn one, absolutely perfect to start one of these laps. And I think that's what we're sort of seeing right now.
Track limits are vicious in sim racing, aren't they? Because in the real world, you can go off line and, okay, you might get a warning. But if you do it here, it's instant time disallowed.
Yeah, and to be honest, I guess in the sim racing world, it's easier to police because they can really see where the cars are and stuff like that. In the real world, it's a very, very hard thing. I still say I prefer a white line and a bit of grass because that really does determine the track limits. But we've got to go for safety, and it's very, very difficult. Hockenheim is one of those places where, especially turn one, you can gain a lot, but you can lose a lot. And normally in qualifying, we get sort of 2 or 3 joker laps, and then we start losing our time. So it's very, very difficult for us to judge. In the race, it's even more so. But I've heard that in race room, it's an automatic penalty. So as soon as you run wide, you get that time you've got to give back, and then you can choose at a time later in the lap when you're going to give that back.
Yeah, effectively a bit like a slowdown when it comes to really bad transgressions in the race. We're watching Moritz Lerner, a very well-known name in not only race room, he's got the Porsche Sim Racing Trophy runner-up title and the ADAC GT Masters on race room. And he took victory in that in 2019, but we've seen him in various different guises and platforms over the last couple of weeks. Looks like he might actually complete this lap. Jack Keithley was the fastest so far. Can Moritz go anywhere near him? Goes into P3, but Keithley's lap is 0.4 of a second faster than anybody else right now, a 1:38.481, and we've just got about half of qualifying remaining. So that is a very, very healthy margin right now.
Yeah, that's a big margin in motor racing terms, and especially in sim racing. He's got quite a gap on the field. Maybe everyone should have a look at some of his laps and find out where he's making up the time. And that's also what's really fascinating, is that the amount of data and information that you can pull from these games is really like the real world, and everyone that's racing in this is working exactly the same way that we do, like in the racing team, coaching data, driving lines. It's all very, very similar to the real thing, and the amount of work and testing that you can do is far beyond what we can ever do.
Yeah, exactly. Testing just means going into your gaming room and turning on the PC and getting going, rather than having to travel to a circuit, get a team of mechanics to get the car there and run it, and then obviously the amount of money that it takes to actually just go testing. Testing in the sim world is much, much easier, and therefore these pro sim drivers have got a huge amount of hours under their belts.
Yeah, as it looks like Jack is even on a better lap than his previous. It looks like he's going to go mainly to the top. Let's see if he improves. It'll be if he managed to improve.
And he does. So he's the field got closer to him. They were 3.5 tenths away, but he's just taken another tenth out of them. So Keithley looking incredibly strong in that Black Swan Racing liveried car. I can tell you your team car, the Chinese driver, is up to 3rd position now. So not a bad effort from Qian. We were looking at, as Moritz Lerner goes into 2nd position. So that's a Williams Esports 1-2, unless Moritz has moved teams since the last time I looked. Here is James West. Now, James West is, you may be questioning who that is. Well, James West actually is better known as Gamer Muscle Videos, because he is one of our influencers. All of our influencers are using their real names on the timing screens, just to confuse us. So if you're looking for Super GT, then you're actually looking for Steve Alvarez Brown. Steve Brown, he's actually Steve Alvarez on our timing screen. So it's 22nd position for Super GT right now. We were following Rael, and Rael is on our timing screens as our Held. So he's 23rd, just behind Alvarez. Here is Rainer Held. And he completes another lap, gets himself ahead of Alvarez up into 22nd position. If you're looking for Fail Race, we've seen Fail Race doing a couple of these celebrity spots over the last couple of weeks. I think he was doing Formula E the other day. He is on your timing screens as Alex Day, down in 27th and last. And he is running an all black, I wonder if that's carbon livery. I do love a carbon car. That's motor racing porn, that is. If you're looking for Dave Gaming, where is Dave Gaming on here? Dave Gaming, there he is, in a Falcon Motorsports car. That's one of my preferred liveries, N24 Specialists. He is down as Dave Gaming Dave, so he's used his right name anyway. That's pretty good. And let's just carry on going through this whilst qualifying ticks on. Not much improvements. So let's have a look at Jaroslav Honsnik. Now, Jaroslav was one of the very best in esports a few years ago from the Czech Republic. And he's won a lot of VIP races in Race Room. And Jaroslav, so he is running in 20th position, 1.6 back in the Iron Force liveried car. And he is better known as Yardier. If we carry on, this is Ralf Hauser, better known as, Aberfachen. Is that right? I think that's right. I know. I've got my German producer laughing in my ear. Brilliant. It's all a bit of fun. Anyway, there's Ralf Hauser. 24th position for Ralf. So the bottom of the timing screens, as expected, for our influencers. And Xavier Sanchez is the last of our influencers, which he's better known as Heike 360 ES. And just destroys his Spark car. Yeah, absolutely. So he's the best of them, isn't he? 18th position. And that's all our influences, I think. Yeah.
And only been 1.4 seconds off the pole time with the gap to pole is actually an almighty effort jumping into this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they will have some experience. You'd hope that they have some experience, wouldn't you, to be that good straight out of the box. But I'm very impressed with Jack Keithley. We're now just 45 seconds away from the end of qualifying. And Keithley still got that 4 tenths of a second, Moritz Lerner. And the rest of the field is very compressed behind him, but Keithley's going to check out on this one. I just wanted to say quickly about our influencers. They may be at the bottom of the timing screens at the moment as, Lerner's bailed out of it, so check a flag. We're going to have a reverse grid for second race, so those influencers may have find the chance to be on the very pole position. So Keithley and Lerner will be on the front row, and then Chan and Yoyovsky on row 2, Pinisic and Brzezinski in row 3, Pret and Gasser row 4, Banksy and DeMarco row 5, Eriksson and Wisniewski row 6, Vega Kuntz row 7. Julian Kuntz will be disappointed with that. Martin Barner and Bo Dixon. And then David Toccacelli, one of the very best, right in the middle of the field. So, getting ready then to get our grid formed and get our race underway. Short, sharp races. Plenty of action to enjoy around this Hockenheim Grand Prix circuit. Best passing places, Earl?
Yeah, best passing paces, definitely down to the hairpin. Obviously, everyone off the first lap is going to be looking for a big draft, so I think the first lap is going to be really, really interesting for us.
All right, just waiting for all the guys to enter the grid. Got a couple of influencers at the back, not yet on the grid, but once they're all on the grid, we go straight into race mode. Last few drivers popping up at the back. Look at that spectacular sight of GT3 R Porsche 911s. An amazing graphical representation and a great start from Jack Keithley. Not a great start in the middle from Brzezinski, I think that was. He's dropped a couple of positions, but looking back from Jack Keithley, he is checking out already. We're not going to see too much of him, I fear, because he is going to be disappearing into the distance. Further back, Simon Pret trying to go around the outside. There's Brzezinski in 8th position. It wasn't a good start from him. The all-black car just behind, trying to find a way through. And that could be DeMarco, because DeMarco is also in an all-black machine. Brzezinski in the slipstream of Gasser. Looks to the right-hand side. He needs the inside line going into the chicane, but finds it's defended. Oh, Brzezinski's going to go deep there. There's Pret going on board with Pret, and he's going to lose a huge amount of positions.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of contact down at the hairpin, as we predicted, as normal in a race at Hockenheim.
Into the first part of the stadium section, and still side by side, Brzezinski trying to find a way past Eriksson just ahead of him then. And there's a little bit of a gap, and it looks as though Brzezinski really does need to get past, because otherwise he's going to lose contact with the guys ahead of him. As we switch to the tail of the field, here is Super GT trying to go around the outside of James West. That's Gamer Muscle Videos. And still trying to stick it around the outside in the stadium section. On board with Gamer Muscle.
And these onboards are just awesome. It looks exactly like the real car. When you look inside, that's exactly the view that we get when we're driving these race cars. So it's fantastic gaming quality there.
And looking at the steering wheel and the inputs that are going on into that steering wheel, Earl, you'd say it's a bit frenetic, really, to get the best out of the car.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it's like in the real car. I mean, if you're going to be right on the limit like all these guys are, it's going to be very intense. And the other thing is it's a 20-minute race, and if anyone's ever tried to game at home, to hold a high level of concentration like these guys are, it's really, really difficult. It's also very taxing, and you could almost say more mentally straining than what we do inside the race car. So I know when I play any of these games, I'm always sweating, and you end up very, very tired after a while, as that looked like a huge lunge down to the hairpin between everybody. Oh, and someone's been turned around.
It's DeMarco in the black machine, and he's going to get squeezed. 4 wide coming into this place. There's absolutely no room for that. He's got Banksy around him as well. And Stemperinski, I think, was the man who made the most of that. He's gone up a few positions. DeMarco's now found himself back up into 10th position as the leaderboard continues to shuffle. Here is Denis DeMarco in that black machine, looking back at Wisniewski. So Wisniewski was inside the top 10. He's just dropped outside of it now. Then Banksy drops to 12th, and Stemperinski, who was up in 10th, down to 13, with Pret losing more positions. Now 14th for him, and Honzik up to 15th spot. Actually, the man that's really lost a lot in the opening couple of laps is Pinsenc, the Hungarian driver. 10 seconds back from the lead. I'm pretty sure he started row 2. And so he's really, really far back. There is Honzik. Yaroslav running the Iron Force livery. A couple of cars with the same liveries. But Keithley leads by 1.5 seconds from Lerner.
There was quite a bit of contact on the first lap, and it is quite easy to lose a couple cars. You know, there's so much action up and down the field, it's always hard to pick what's going on, and it takes all of us a few laps just to settle down and work out where everyone went sometimes with these races.
Thomas Stemperinski from Romania in 14th position. Just ahead of Jaroslav Honzik, and more lunging at the hairpin. It's so tempting to lunge down there, isn't it? And you know, the circuit's wide, you get on a bit late on the brakes, and sometimes you're kind of forced to do it.
Well, what happens down there is it's such a wide entry to the corner, and you normally want to go in quite deep past the corner and get a really good exit because the straight's so long. And when you're the car behind, and the concertina effect, it sort of looks very inviting and opens itself up that you just want to drive right in there, and that it's going to be an easy way to make a passing opportunity, and then it sort of always narrows itself up. As I see my own car on screen and currently third, but getting a lot of pressure there. It's a good little battle here, and I see that what's interesting is that we thought Keithley with this qualifying margin was going to run away, but it's sort of settled at 1.7 seconds, so he's not getting away that easy. The top four is going to be in a right fight this whole way, I have a feeling.
Emir Chan representing Alabama Motorsport in third position from China. And he's got Yayovsky all over the back of him. Yayovsky probably one of the best known sim racers out there right now, being one of the world's fastest Gamer finalists from season 2. And again, another man that can jump into different platforms and perform at the very best. As we switch back to Toccacelli, I think he's just lost a position there. And they are fighting over 16th spot. So Toccacelli down, and Pincet's, that's a progress then from Adam Pincet's moving up a position to 16th, I think.
And it's fantastic to see just so many Porsches on track, actually. That's what's one of the coolest things. Another big dive bomb down at the hairpin. They always, oh, and he's got turned around on the exit. Oh, that's terrible luck.
That was Temperinski, I think, who's now descending the leaderboard on the left-hand side of your screen. And we look at Bo Dixon running the SSR Performance livery, and he's about to lose a position. That's Toccacelli, I think, kind of half recovering. So perhaps it was Toccacelli who made a little bit of contact there. And Bo Dixon all over the back of him, with Llorona from Argentina just behind him. What an amazing grid. A kind of grid in terms of nationalities, as a few people run a bit deep, that you never see in real world motorsport, because plenty of these nationalities, especially, and round he goes, that's Honzik actually being spun round from the Czech Republic. So he's now going to be at the back of the field. He could be a really fierce competitor if he starts on the front row of the grid for race 2, a full reverse grid, remember. But there are countries in here that you don't see represented in real world motorsport really ever. Places like Slovakia, Romania. I can't remember where Yayovsky's from, but certainly, is it Macedonia, I think, that flag? And Argentina as well. Plenty of drivers from Argentina, but not many in Europe. It's just so fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, and it's fantastic to see that there's that much racing talent all around the world, and places that we've never really seen before. So it's really, really cool. And what I was getting back to with this whole field of Porsches, I've always said to Porsche that wouldn't it have been fantastic if we did a VIP race of all the Porsche Works drivers and all of the drivers asked in a Carrera Cup race. That would be something fantastic to see. But they've never thought it's a great idea. But maybe we can get that into the sim world one day, where we all race each other in the same equipment and do one of these races. Would be kind of cool to see. And I can imagine the banter would just be immense between all of the current and past drivers.
Well, there's some very, very successful and fast Porsche drivers right now from the Works factory team that are competing in various forms of pro sim racing right now. The likes of Nick Tandy. There's, of course, the Carrera Super Cup Virtual Edition for the real world drivers who need their race. That is happening, as well as the esports version for professional sim drivers. That's kicking off this weekend. So plenty of sim action. And of course, I don't know if you meant to tee me up, Earl, but At the end of each of these events, the top 5 will qualify into our final, which will happen in 4 weeks' time. And they will be joined by plenty of factory drivers. So we will have a kind of version of what you've been dreaming for.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting, this whole community thing with everyone coming through in the top 5, advancing to the final race, and then bringing everyone together, factory drivers, the gaming drivers, into that final race is going to be something really, really special. And I guess I get to commentate on all my colleagues this time around when that final race comes about, which is going to be really, really entertaining. And I think the pressure and intensity is going to build up week on week with everyone to try and make it into those final races. There's some advance and then obviously some not, and also the variety of the cars that everyone's going to be driving. I'm really looking forward to next week with the 964 Cup cars. They're going to be amazing to see on track.
Yeah, they should be moving around quite a bit more, shouldn't they, than these sort of modern day machines that are so well put together. Their downforce sticks them to the ground, and the amazing power. Almost a different driving style to drive a car from the 90s.
Oh, it's completely different style, and the amount of less grip that you get, but it's so unforgiving and it's so challenging to get that perfect lap. We think, getting a lap out of one of these cars with a lot of downforce is difficult, but when you're trying to have no grip and you're sliding around, you can get big gaps because, if you want to nail one of those absolute perfect laps, you'll find yourself with a big margin over everyone else. And, I think that's what everyone in the gaming world strives for, is to do those perfect laps. I remember when I was playing a lot back in the day, I actually learned Nürburgring from Gran Turismo. So that's how I learned that track. And as soon as I went to the track, I knew every little bump and everything like that. It took hours to learn it, but, it just shows how close what they're doing in the games these days is to reality.
Absolutely, and in terms of handling and performance of the cars, this is one of the very best in terms of platforms for replicating real life scenarios. Just so you guys can feel further involved, if you're not able to be fast enough to be in these races over the next couple of weeks, you can still get involved by voting for our track and car combination for that final race. So make sure you keep in touch with our Instagram channel, where we will be opening up the ability to vote for where the guys will race and what car they will race in. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be in these GT3 cars as we are right now, as some of our influencers get stuck into each other further back. Rainer Hell's going to be dive bombed there by Vega, the Frenchman, who's actually kind of in the wrong place there. I think Vega should be well up and obviously struggling a little bit. Next week, as we said, as another spinner goes round, Sten Purinsky's having a dreadful race. He's now right at the tail of the field. He's been bullied out of proceedings the last couple of laps, and really not enjoying it. So yes, GT3 this week, 964 next week, and the third week, the RSR used in the WEC series, and obviously Le Mans car, that is not yet available on Race Room, but it will become available very, very shortly in conjunction with this competition. So that's going to be really, really cool. There'll be no experience with anybody. They'll all have the same kind of experience with the car and be able to practice across the week leading up in the hot lapping competition, and that will be it. We're racing at Daytona in that car.
What's really interesting right now, with about 7 minutes to go in the race, we've been racing for 14-15 minutes now, you start to see some of the errors creeping in. You see a few guys sliding wide, we've seen a few spinners, and I think it just shows how mentally challenging this thing is to drive these cars on the limit and on the edge. And even from the guys at the front, you see a few mistakes creeping in here and there, which I find quite interesting as a driver watching this.
Yeah, and I think there's something to do with, as we watch Jack Keithley, who is having a cruise at the front. He's going to be at the very back of the field for race 2 because we're going to reverse the grid totally. So he's going to have a lot more work. Interestingly, equal points for both race 1 and race 2. So that will keep the championship nice and tight as we run through the next couple of weeks. I think it's more intense when you're racing in the sim world versus racing in the real world. There's something about not having some of those senses taken away that almost intensifies what your brain and your eyes are having to do.
Yeah, 100%. And when we're doing the sim work in Visor, you know, we always have to go in basically sports gear because you get out of that car and it's very hot, it's muggy, and you know, it is really, really tough and challenging. And when you go home from a day in the sim, normally we start about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, finishing at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, you're really, really mentally drained, and you know, it feels like you've driven, you know, multiple stints. So it is really mentally challenging, but it's also really good to engage your brain, especially in the times when we're not racing so much at the moment. It keeps your brain thinking about racing. It keeps yourself thinking about how to go faster, analyzing the data, all of those sorts of things is really great. As we see for the podiums.
Yeah, so this is Chan on Lerner. A couple of laps ago, Chan was battling with Yayovsky. We've just seen Yayovsky lose a position to Brzezinski. I wonder whether the tyres are becoming a factor now. And Chan is all over the back of Moritz Lerner here. Into the stadium section. A bit tricky to overtake into that hairpin because the racing line kind of is the inside line. And very hard to get up the inside without a proper lunge. So Chan's going to have to be, I think, a little bit patient here, and perhaps get halfway around the lap before he can do a dive born at the hairpin.
Yeah, and there's about 3 or 4 more laps left in this race here to fight it out. But it's been a great battle. They've been nose to tail the whole way, and not one of them's put a foot wrong so far. And they've sort of dropped off 4th place because for a while there was a 3-car battle for the podium. And now they've dropped back, and they've got their own fight in the last 4 minutes of the race.
Keithley 4.6 back ahead of this battle. And then there's another 4 or 5 seconds back to Yayovsky and Brzezinski. Yayovsky's fallen off a cliff somewhere because he was right with this, and he's lost 5 seconds in the last, 5 minutes. Right, this is the opportunity. Lerner, though, very, very deep on the brakes. Too deep on the brakes, I was wondering. Because Chian was definitely looking for the opportunity to get down the inside. Still side by side though, perhaps a little bit of rubbing as they come to this right kink. Lerner wants the inside line into the Mercedes arena, and he's going to have it, and he's going to keep hold of that position. That was wise driving.
Yeah, that was fantastic driving. That was really, really clean stuff between both of them. There was quite a lot of grinding coming out from the hairpin, but it's awesome to see that the style of racing that we get right now is exactly the same as what happens at Hockenheim. When you run it a bit wide, then obviously you can still cross back each other, and it's what makes this facility one of the coolest places to race in Europe, with the different options of where you can pass all around the circuit.
Interesting that lap gap to Keithley is dropping every so often, so I wonder whether Keithley's now properly in chill mode and just cruising to the finishing line. Comes over the line with 3 minutes 27 seconds remaining, so I think we've got another 3 laps out of this one.
Yeah, he's probably already thinking about how he's going to manage to get from 27th on the grid all the way back through the field. And, you know, I think it's going to be interesting because he's not, you know, that far away from, and the whole group is not that strung out. It's going to be a real challenge. You know, if you look inside the top 10, they're all within 20 seconds in a 20-minute race. So it's going to be hard for these guys that are winning this race to get all the way back through to the front.
Mikey 360 does a 360 over in the stadium section. So Sanchez is dropping to the tail of the field. And those influencers are going to get a lot of TV time, I think, on the early doors. Here comes Kyan this time, but he is too deep under brakes, far too deep under brakes. It was a good lunge. As further back, there was another lunge going on, and that's Ericsson on Gasser. Ericsson now trying to force Gasser off the track, trying to shut him down, but he doesn't have the overlap going into the next section of turns. He does it. Ericsson stays behind. Takes a chunk of curb there, though.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit cheeky, you know, to be just left out there with absolutely no racing room on the exit there. But he's managed to grab the position, and now I imagine he's going to try to get him back immediately as he's looking into the high-speed corner, into the stadium section. It's great racing. It's been great racing all up and down the field.
Yeah, that's not really an overtaking place there. Remarkably, it's quite a fast entry into the stadium. There's not really the braking zone, is there?
No, it's incredibly fast these days in you know, a modern GT3 car. You just lightly tap the brakes and then it's really, really quick. And you've got the gravel trap on the exit, so you've got to be committed on the way in. But if you have gone in too hot, it's all over. And then you go into this corner here where there's multiple racing lines. It actually depends on what race weekend you do it. Sometimes there's a high line, sometimes there's a low line. It really depends if you're with Formula One or DTM. DTM, you see them run very, very high. In the Cup car, I remember you could do a multitude of different driving lines, so that's what made it a real challenge.
There's another old Bamba car just ahead of us.
Yeah,
Honzik versus Alvarez.
That was another one there from Macau, which is quite cool to see all these cars. It's making me really wish that I was in this race, and it has been great racing. As yeah, we go to defend, and it's a big battle here going on, and I think we're going to be on nearly the last lap here.
This is Super GT battling with Honzik. So two YouTubers, the battle of the YouTuber, Yardia versus Super GT. Both actually pretty good drivers. Super GT does a lot of karting, and he's pretty successful in that over in the UK. Plenty of his videos don't really represent how good he is, but look at this fantastic battling. Yaroslav trying to go all the way around the outside. Has that worked for him? He's going to have the inside line, of course, at the next braking zone. And Super GT being quite fair with him here. This is where he can get the move finished.
And they're still side by side. This is amazing. They've been side by side nearly the entire lap.
Brilliant entertainment. This is what this is all about. It might not necessarily, well, it's going to be very serious for the guys out front, and now he does it in a place we just said that you couldn't overtake. But this is all about coming together and having some fun. And those two clearly having some fun. It's no fun when you shut the pass down and you force them off the track, or you make contact and push somebody into a wall. It's way more fun when you're sliding around side by side, kind of like going to a go-kart track with your mates and just never giving yourself too much of an advantage. One person, though, who is not playing the same game as those guys is Jack Keithley. Half a second faster in qualifying, and he's going to finish this race with around 7-second gap. It has been an absolutely dominant performance from the Williams Esports driver.
Yeah, he's just been on a different planet all through practice, all through qualifying. He hasn't put a foot wrong, and he's led every single lap, lights to flag, and it's sort of a textbook race. It's really impressive to watch. It's amazing just to watch him, follow him through the lines. The way he's driving the car is just spot on. I haven't seen him, vary his line or anything the whole way, which is an incredible effort for 20 minutes. Don't underestimate how difficult what these guys are doing right now, but he's going to take the first race of the season.
Round the final two corners then. Here comes Jack Keithley, the Williams Esports driver from the UK, using all the track and more over the finishing line, and he is our first victor of the Porsche Community Legends Race Together trophy. Moritz Lerner for Germany in second, and Chinese driver Tian in third. Brzezinski and Yoyovsky are going to round out the top 5 positions, although we've still got a little bit of time to wait before they are absolutely completed. Here is the man in last spot. He's going to finish just under a minute down on our winner, Ralf Hauser, otherwise known as Abukfahren, basically. And we go back to some of the guys in the mid-pack. Nikodem Wisniewski, 16th spot, so he's going to be disappointed with that. I think Wisniewski would hope to be a bit higher up. And even at the line, some changes. Stemperinski losing a couple of positions. Bansky's gone all the way down to 23rd. Has he finished yet? No, he hasn't. Where's Bansky gone? Is he trying to get pole position for race 2 here? That is Ralf Hauser coming across the line. So Bansky, I think, is finishing on the front row of the grid. Keithley wins from Lerner. Tian, Brzezinski and Yoyovsky, the top 5. Then Gasser, Ericsson, Kuntz, DeMarco, Bansi, top 10. So Bansky put himself back in the 10th position. And then Vinicic, Pret, Tokicelli, Dixon, Yorona, Barner and Wisniewski, Vega and Honzik and Alvarez, the top 20 positions. And of course, all of that is going to be reversed for this second race of the evening. And all of our influences are going to be on pole position. Right. They are occupying the front rows of the grid with Abukfahren, Ralf Hauser on the pole.
Yeah, and if we thought that race was exciting and there was plenty of action, this one is going to be absolutely intense the whole way.
I'm a bit worried, actually, for the first couple of corners. We just need to stay wide, director. Don't go on board with anybody because it's going to be chaos. If you could just hold the camera, I know that's not very easy on sim races, but I think it's going to be very messy. Just waiting for everyone to join. They all have now, and we are getting ready to go racing for the second 35-minute encounter. There is Ralph Hauser on the pole position. He's not made a bad start, actually. Look at that, a great getaway. And he should be safe at least for a couple of corners.
Yeah, that was a fantastic start. And we've got our first one going around. A couple have gone around in the background there, outside of turn 1.
Looking at the Chinese driver, Emit Chan, who's on 21st, mid-pack. Carl Vega in 11th position. I don't think many of the influencers lost too much there. In P6, and a little bit of physicality going into the hairpin. We are full wide going into the hairpin. Don't miss your braking. Oh my God, who misses braking zone there? That was the Team Manfi car as more people get involved further back.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of chaos as we expected down at the hairpin, but it looks like quite a few of the guys are making their way through. I can't wait to see the rankings after the first lap to see who's got where, as we see more diving. Pringle's top wide there. That looked a bit wild.
That was Gamer Muscle who went very deep at the hairpin in the Team Manfi car. He's now right at the tail of the field, on board with Simon Pret. I massively apologise to Emir Can. I don't know why I thought that was the Chinese flag. Of course, it's the Turkish flag. So, whole of race 1, giving him the wrong nationality, as we got a couple of people spinning, someone from the really front of the field on the grass there. Who was that? I would say that was Martin Barner, perhaps, although he's still in 3rd position. Alvarez down in 17th, so Super GT has gone down to 26th spot. We talked about Game of Muscle, 23rd position. Agafaran, who had the pole position, is still in P2. Ralph Hauser, so that's not bad from him, but most of the influencers are right at the tail of the field. Alex Day holding on to 6th though.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic opening lap with a lot of action. The guys that were starting right at the back, Keithley already up to 19th, Emit Chan already up to 16th, 14th now, so they're really carving their way through the field, which is giving us plenty of action. It's hard to know where to look or what to talk about right now.
Classic reverse grid race though, right? It's, you used to have that in Formula Master, didn't you? Have half a reverse grid?
Well, yeah, we used to have half top 6 reverse grid, I'm pretty sure it was. Same with GP2, which has also always made it really, really interesting to mix up just that top 6. We tried it in New Zealand many years ago with touring car racing to do a complete reverse grid race, and it was, to be honest, sometimes really entertaining, but sometimes also just a total disaster. And unfortunately, normally it just costs way too much money because there's so much panel damage. And what's great in sim racing is that you can just hit reset and there's no dollar bills afterwards from so much content. As we see one going around the background there in the Parabolica, that's going to cause a little bit of a mess for everyone trying to come through.
I mean, a nice move from Barner around the outside of Hauser as well. Didn't quite work out who went round at Parabolica. But Hauser down to 3rd position. What's nice to see, though, is both Hauser and Sanchez, who are our 2 leading influencers, are seemingly not putting too many feet wrong here. They're not necessarily lapping at an ultimately fast pace, but we're not seeing them lose the car too often.
Yeah, what I'd love to see is some of these Twitch accounts or YouTube accounts. I could imagine the banter between them would be absolutely epic right now as everyone's trying to pass each other going through the field. And that's also what's been really cool, is obviously with the sim racing, different to the real world, is that people can talk to each other as they're racing, and you can see really everyone's driver's live reactions, which you'd normally see under the helmet. We can see on camera these days, which has actually been really, really entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's given us a whole new world that's planned into the life of one example of Norris or Verstappen or even Charles Leclerc now playing Euro Trucker the other day in a banana suit. I mean, When would you ever see a Formula One driver do that over the last couple of years?
Yeah, and obviously you get to see everyone's character, and normally we do get a lot of banter between ourselves at the racetrack, but it's not seen on camera or by many people. You see, we're all very, very competitive, and we all hate losing, and there is a lot of banter and, you know, play tricks on each other, which is a whole lot of fun, but it's often not seen by the outside world. So on sim racing, it's really cool that everything can be seen.
Yeah, there's plenty of stories that probably should never be really broadcast. I know a few from the Le Mans 24 Hours and pranks being played on people sleeping and all that. It must be a fun world being a racing car driver, I have to say.
Yeah, no, it's really, I mean, it's everyone's dream job. We all start when we're 7 years old of go-karts, dreaming of being able to drive racing cars, and, you know, it's really an amazing journey. You meet some amazing people, and it also takes such a huge crew of people, you know, to get the cars moving. With the RSR project, there's so many people, especially in America. We've actually been doing Zoom meetings between the guys because, you know, for many of us, they're like our family. All the race teams, we haven't seen them for ages. So we've been doing the odd Zoom meeting to keep in touch with everyone. So it's yeah, a big community, a big family, but there is a few good stories. I think probably the best one is the one between me and Lawrence last year, if anyone's seen it, from mid-Ohio, where he got his rental car stuck and I tried to push him out, and he's just roosted me with mud, which was highly entertaining for everyone at the track. I think there is a video somewhere on Instagram, but you know, it's those sorts of things where you know, that's what makes racing also something special. It's that whole family and community, and it's what we're trying to create here with Porsche on the online world, is this fantastic community of everyone being able to get out and race together in this format is really cool.
So Stemperinski's up into second position ahead of Sanchez. Barner now leads, and Banksy's coming up as well. So those influences are starting to fall back, but we've still got plenty of race time left. 28 minutes and 19 seconds remaining. So here is Banksy.
Yeah, this race is much longer than the second one, because obviously, you know, this first one was only 20 minutes long, and, you know, we've still got more than that race distance of the first one to go. So it's going to be a long one, and I think the guys are going to get through as we go on board. It's fantastic to see these onboards about how realistic. I can't get over how realistic that inboard is. I mean, they've even got all the buttons and the paneling and everything in exactly the right place. It's awesome.
And of course, you can buy yourself a steering wheel for a Fanatec pod, and it has all the buttons in exactly the same places as Banksy goes down the inside. Further back, though, a few people properly sending it. Influencer Heike, yes, is still in fourth position, so he's doing a good job. Hauser in sixth. That's also not bad. As I said a little bit earlier, those two are not putting feet wrong. That's the key thing here. They're not necessarily ultimately the fastest times. And interesting to see that Jack Heathley, 15th position, 10 seconds back. He's not making the progress that you would imagine, considering his pace from race one.
Yeah, I think it just shows how close everyone is equally matched, and it's not that, like in racing, if you've got a 2 or 3 tenth advantage, it's not that you can easily convert that into passing people, obviously, and the higher up you go, the more and more difficult that's going to become, because eventually you start racing the guys that finish second and third in those races as well. So it is quite a challenge for them to get through, and you've got to think about points as well. Obviously, both races are scoring equal points, and we're only just started 10 minutes into the race, so there's still plenty of time. You got to be patient with these ones as well. As much as you want to fire in there and try and get from last to first in the first lap, it's also a good spot to lose the race as well.
So here's Moritz Lerner, second in the first race, and he looks to the inside to make a move. A little bit of contact, and that is Tian going around the outside of him, so making the move. Yayovsky and Keithley also in there, so that's where our kind of best pace is right now, in 12th, 13th, 14th and 15th positions, as Kuntz moves up ahead of Sanchez.
Yep, as we've got another big dive at the hairpin. They're all trying to dive each other at the hairpin every single lap, and they're sort of, with them battling each other right now as well, they're sort of impeding their progress as well from the guys in front. If you've looked, they've sort of stayed in that 12th, 13th, 14th position for the last 2 or 3 laps. So Obviously, they've got to try and move their way forward, but it's not easy for them right now. They're sort of stalled out in their progress.
Joachim Jarana is the guy that is holding at the moment that group of drivers back, and so he's the kind of the cork in the bottle, and actually fighting a little bit with Pret. So that is those two going side by side, and actually I think Pret was pretty put off line there, so perhaps has now opened the door as we move our attention back to Xavier Sanchez, Heike 360 ES. And he's running in 6th position, just behind Gasser and Kuntz. So Julian Kuntz didn't have a particularly starring performance in the first race, but this is a much better performance from a man who has done so much in race room and has multiple race room titles, including the WTCR launch event title. But you know, WTCR car, front-wheel drive, quite different to a rear-wheel drive Porsche, and even any rear-wheel drive car is quite different to a rear-wheel drive GT3 Porsche.
Yeah, the Porsche is definitely unique. Obviously, with the engine position, it's something very, very special, and you've got to remember its attributes, how much traction and drive it's got. They're so good in the slow-speed corners, and if you're not used to being able to use it, as we some big lunges going on there at the hairpin, that was pretty entertaining. They continue it straight off the exit of the corner side by side. And yeah, that's my own car. They're going pretty good up into P9, but yeah, it is very, very special. And like what we spoke about, because there's such a range of different cars week to week, it's going to be a real challenge for them to learn. Obviously, all of them with the same special position with the engine in the back. But that's what I love about them. Ever since I started driving one, I really sort of clicked with the car, and it's phenomenal. Once you get this perfect lap together, they're not the easiest thing to drive, but when you get that perfect lap, you know you've done something really, really good, and you know it's deeply satisfying to get a really cracking lap out of one of these cars.
The man going down backwards at the moment is Hauser in 15th position. He was just lunged by that fast group of guys, including Jack Keithley, who absolutely 3 wide lunged into the Mercedes arena. Quite a risky move there. There is Jack, now behind Moritz Lerner, up to 12th position. Chian's making better progress than those two, though. He's managed to get himself up to 8th, ahead of Wisniewski and Pret. So his next target is Sanchez. And I'd say that Chian's got a very good possibility of a good result here as we look at Dennis DiMarco in that all-black machine. Presumably a test Porsche livery, I imagine. Not something that we've seen them run in competition, although you might be able to correct me, Al.
No, we've never seen that one in competition. That'll be a testing livery. It's awesome to see also the first livery that we drove the Nürburgring with, which was sort of the camo Grello car. I saw that on the starting grid, which was really, really cool to see as well. I was going to say, which one is your favourite? There's some pretty awesome livery.
There is. I really like the Falken Motorsports car. I don't know why. I don't know what kind of has given me that connection to the Falken Motorsports livery, but for some reason I like it, and you don't see it that often. So it's a VLN special, I guess.
Yeah, they always run that same livery. They ran it in America as well with the 911 RSRs. That standard, I guess it's mint. You call it mint green, which is really cool. They also. Do you also remember that fantastic livery, the camo one, that they did a few years ago when they won Petit Le Mans? Was also something really, really cool. I think it was one of Tandy's first big wins was that camo livery one. If anyone hasn't ever seen it, take a look. It's got teeth out the front and stuff like that. It's a really wild livery.
What I really love about liveries is obviously we haven't had a chance really to see the official Porsche liveries for 2020 yet, but they have been running them in the virtual world. So when they've been racing on the IMSA Virtual Series, they've been running those old livery, the new livery, which is really cool to see, using this virtual platform as a way to launch it.
Yeah, I mean, we got one race down in IMSA this year in Daytona, debuting the 2019 RSR, the new car in America, which was absolutely awesome to get a double podium first time out for that car. We had a huge fight with BMW throughout the whole race, and it was really, really great debut. And what's also really cool, if anyone's following the IMSA iRacing series, is that sort of intense battle between Porsche, BMW, and the other manufacturers has actually continued into the sim racing world. I know we're taking it very seriously, and you know, we want to definitely try beat them as they took out the first 2 races of the season. And it's really, really cool that competition, not just from the drivers, but also for the manufacturers, is still there and entered into the gaming world.
Yeah, I think Porsche was kind of almost taken by surprise at just how serious BMW entered the Sebring 12 hours with so much engineering support and getting the real-life engineers to work with the drivers. So suddenly, when the full series was announced, it was, right, all hands to the deck. We need to make sure we've got the best drivers and the best engineering support and best strategy as well going into the race in Laguna Seca. Unfortunately, still missed out, but Porsche, as I said before, have got some fantastic talent within their real-world drivers in the sim community, and of course training more in the virtual edition of the Super Cup that is running at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's been awesome to see the Virtual Super Cup. I've been staying up 2 or 3 a.m. each night to watch some of these races, which has been awesome and really entertaining. As we see a passing move, looking to overtake at the hairpin. That's sort of, if we can pull this off, absolutely textbook. Hockenheim move, parks at the apex, and away you go. That was a textbook move. But yeah, I've really, really enjoyed the Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup. The battles between Guven and Tanvord have been really, really entertaining at the front of those races. And it's going to be interesting to see who takes out that E-Championship. I'm hoping that I can get maybe to the next round, but I'm probably going to be really woeful when I begin.
That's all right. Jaap van Lagen's rubbish too, and he's really good in the real world, so it's okay.
Well, my only main goal is I want to beat Van Thor. That's the main person that I want to go out and try and beat, which is going to be quite a challenge because I know he's putting in absolutely hours and hours and hours on the sim right now, but that's the sort of goal. Yeah,
he has really improved over the last couple of weeks. Every time you see him in a televised event, he's just getting better and better. So that is a high target, Earl. That's a really difficult one, I think, for you. But good luck with that and your internet connection at the same time.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm probably going to move to Auckland and go stay with some friends because they've got a sim rig there. So that's the plan at the moment, and hopefully within the next week I can get onto some esports racing because I feel like I'm definitely missing out on all the great racing at the moment. So that's my plan, is to move 5 hours away and try and do some esport racing, lock myself in a room and start practicing.
I love that.
I'm not going to. Trust me, I'm not going to enter one until I'm actually decent.
Back in your early career, you had to move to Europe to establish yourself in the real world of motorsport, and now you have to move to a place with decent internet to establish yourself in the virtual world.
Yeah, it's quite crazy how quickly everything changes. In March, we were looking at flying to Sebring, nearly all of us, and now we're all locked inside and looking at ways that we can get onto the online and virtual world.
So just over 15 minutes remaining of race 2. Earl Bamber and Ben Constanduris with you, commentating on this reverse grid race. And at the moment, race 1 winner Jack Keithley, he's got himself up to... Where has Jack Keithley gone? He must have had an accident because he's dropped down to 20th position. Keithley has somewhere, and we haven't seen it, had an issue. There he is on his own and miles away even from 18th position. So Moritz Lerner is in 9th spot, and Qian, who is also a podium finisher in race 1, is in 6th position with Barnett, Banksy and Kuntz the top 3 right now.
Yeah, look, he must have had an issue or had a spin because he's lost about 10 to 13 seconds on Qian, and they were in that sort of group all together. So I imagine there's been a bit of an accident or a spin or somewhere that we've all missed in all the action up and down the field. I'd love to know actually what happened to him. But that's a big shame for him because he was absolutely dominant the whole weekend. But that's what makes this challenging, and that's why we're also doing these reverse grid races to sort of throw up something new and different in the mix.
Watching the battle for 2nd position, Kuntz and Banksy.
Yeah, I love these E-races. I love these E-races, how entertaining they are. There's just battles all up and down the field. It's really, really tight, and often at the end of these races, there's a big battle for the final podium spots. It's really been it's been great motor racing.
I put it out there on Twitter the other day, at Ben Consti, if you want to join, that virtual world racing was more entertaining than real world racing. Can you imagine the chaos that caused on Twitter? But I stand by it. All the commentary that I've done for the virtual edition of the Super Cup and IMSA and all the rest of it, it's always been fantastic. We've never had a dull race.
No, it is fantastic. And I think what's really interesting as well is that you see some championships starting to trial and think about different formats that they could try in e-racing and seeing what makes the racing more entertaining, because obviously we're always looking to make something more entertaining, a better product for the fans, because that's what drives the sport, is people coming out and watching us at these tracks. And it's been quite interesting. I'm sure there's going to be some new ideas coming out of the virtual world to say, hey, maybe we could apply that sort of excitement to the real world, which I find really, really fascinating, and something positive out of all of this.
Do you know what? I really hope so. I really hope so. I always run my my management races that I play on flights to different race meetings. I always run them with an elimination, like we're seeing with the Formula E right now. So the last car gets eliminated on every single lap. And then if you throw in a strategic pit stop into it, it creates absolutely amazing races all the time. I know it's not traditional motorsport, but certainly there are ideas in this virtual world that can be adapted to the real world. And I do really hope that the powers that be are looking and thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. And also lots of races at a weekend. You know, it's great to have such a quick back-to-back format of races. I remember when I did Super League, that was one of the most entertaining ones, because we did 2 back-to-back 45-minute races with a 10-minute break in between, a little bit like World Touring Car style as well. And then you've obviously got to think about how much you sacrifice the first race for the second race, because obviously if you have an accident, then you're out. So, you know, all those sorts of things come into play, and we can see them all play out in the virtual world. I think another big thing is that there's no damage in these races as well. But I've been watching the NASCAR, and their damage simulator is getting better and better. I think favourite story so far is Denny Hamlin, when his daughter managed to switch off his TV monitors in the middle of the NASCAR race. That was quite hilarious if you saw that 2 days ago.
Not something that would happen in the real world. That's very one of the many quirks of the virtual racing that can happen. I had my screen decide to go into sleep mode the other day when I was racing. Just a big sign in the middle of the screen saying it will turn off in 30 seconds. And I was trying to scrabble for the controller to try and find it to turn it back on again. All of these little things can happen in virtual racing. And it is, if you're tuning in and you're new to virtual racing, then of course all of these drivers are at home or at their place of simulator. They'll have different types of equipment. They can spend from 500 euros up to 500,000 euros on a simulator. They'll all have slightly different equipment, slightly different surroundings and environments. Some of them I know when they do endurance races will hang a camel pack off the back of their seat, so they've still got to water. So just like you would at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, I suppose. You have a camelback of some kind of liquid, wouldn't you, that you'd plug into the car?
Yeah, so these days we've got drink bottle systems inside the car. So basically just a drink bottle made out of steel and the heat retardant, because it's still hot inside. And then basically we've got a tube and a button on the door that says drink. And you push that button and a small electric pump pumps water into your mouth. But it's actually something really, really important to do, that you've got to keep drinking as you do these races, because it's really easy to get dehydrated. Not for the current stint you're in, but it definitely in a long race affects you in stint 3 or 4 when you try to do those double stints early in the morning and stuff like that. And you've got to remember that we normally don't sleep that much as well. So it's an incredibly intense time trying to do that. And another thing that I've seen only once in V8 supercars was actually carrying sports gels inside the car as well. So under safety car, just like cyclists, eating some sports gel as well, which is one of the first times. We did an LMP1 at the pit stops. We used to eat a gel when we stopped and stayed in the car as well. So all these different things, but I'm sure the sim racers also do those same things.
That would be quite difficult to get in your mouth with a full face helmet on, I imagine. Got a bit of a fiddle with your gloves.
We've got these really big long straw tubes, so they're already set up, and all you got to do is squeeze them. And then we've got a big battle going on now for the lead between first and second. And I think we just saw a new race leader.
Typical that my feed decides to die when there's a battle for the lead.
It's all right, mate. I tried to take it over for you. It was all right.
Yeah, Banksy's in the lead now. And a nice little battle for the lead of the race. 3 cars now. Julian Kunze also there. Barner has had that lead since the start of the race, pretty much. He got in front of the influencers very, very quickly. Who is our best influencer still? Looks like Jaroslav Honzik in 12th position now. Dennis Di Marco, drive-through penalty. So he's going to drop out of 10th position.
And I wonder what that's for. I wonder if that's for the contact with, could it be with Keithley? I'm just surmising here, but there's something definitely happened to Keithley.
Yeah, and no pace now, does it? I mean, still 19 seconds off the lead and not going anywhere. So Jack Keithley is going to be very disappointed. At least he's now caught up to the tail of a group and he moves past Bo Dixon. So he can start improving his position, but we've only got points down to, as usual, 15th spot. So at the moment, he'll score absolutely 0. Although, such is the mix of race 1 to race 2. He actually, at the moment, provisionally stays in 3rd position in the championship, just 1 point off the championship lead.
Yeah, so it's actually very, very close still. And I'm sure he's going to also hit back into the points, that's for sure. He's only 1 second away from 15th, which starts to score points. So it's going to be incredibly tight. I'm sure he can, let's hope for him that he can hold on to lead, as I think we're going to see a frantic battle here for the podium coming up really, really soon. But that time's ticking away. There's only 8 minutes left. It's gone. The race is flowing by for a 35-minute race with so much action. The time's gone before we even knew it.
And at such an early time in the morning for you as well. You do very well to be able to stay up in the middle of the night to watch an IMSA race or commentate in the early morning for us here. It's it's great, but I suppose it's part of your DNA, because when you were a kid, you wanted to follow Formula One. It's the only way you could do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It spent many Monday mornings before going to school, watching Formula One. Normally for us, it was sort of like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, so you'd watch Formula One and then get up and go to school. So yeah, for people in New Zealand, that's generally what we're used to, and it's a great way. I mean, generally I'm a big motorsport fan as well. I'm watching all sorts of different racing as well all the time. So right now in the virtual world, trying to watch everything and follow everything has been really, really cool from this side of the world. Obviously America is really good because it's nearly the middle of the day for us when something's going on in America.
Lots going on track. Moritz Lerner under pressure from Wisniewski and Jojowski. So those are 3 very, very fast sim racers, not only on Race Room, but on other platforms as well. Wisniewski and Lerner used to be teammates. I'm not sure Wisniewski is a Williams driver any longer, but he does find himself in all kinds of competitions. Jojowski just behind. So this is a very fast pack running together. They have kind of lost contact with Chian, who's up the road in 6th position. He's about a second behind Jesper Eriksson, who just ran wide here last time through, as Wisniewski does the same, and now has to sit on the inside and defend, so not to lose a position, but he runs deep, and he does lose the position in the end. Just couldn't quite get the car slowed down.
No, he couldn't quite get it slowed down there, and that was a good little battle, good move, and as we still see this huge battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, it's really heating up. And we see Chan in the background. I'm a bit biased there because he's driving in my own livery, but he's creeping only 5 seconds away from the race lead. So I think we're going to see a big battle with the top 4 within 2 seconds with 6 minutes to go. I'm sure there's still going to be some more positions swapped out.
I reckon you've got about 5 different favourites in this race, because there's about 3 or 4 cars that are actually carrying your name, and then there's another few that are actually your team. So you've got lots of favourites to follow.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's why it's been really interesting. It's obviously quite difficult to get used to everyone's names so quickly, with so many different people that you've never really heard of from the wheel racing world, with such huge talent into this e-racing. It's a real eye-opener coming and watching, because most of the races that I've been watching have been with professional drivers still in it. But this is probably one of the first real professional sim races where it's mainly sim based and you know, online influencers. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you. I'm not sure I'm doing many commentaries on sim races. I'm mainly real world at the moment, even though I've in the past done quite a lot. Martin Barner is under serious pressure from Julian Kunze right now. Kunze was later on the brakes into the Mercedes arena, and he really concertinaed up this battle so that Mark Gasser can join the party as well. I was hoping that perhaps they might be able to draw back the gap they've lost to Banky, but as they continue to fight, they are losing time. And there was a change of position further back. Couldn't quite see who that was, but Jack Keithley now up to 13th. So he's not making any ground on Banksy. He's 21 seconds back now, but in terms of positions, at least he's now in the points.
Yeah, he's definitely making inroads. And if you have a look, he's only 2 seconds away from 11th. So with 2 or 3 laps left in the race, I still think maybe 11th or 12th is possible for him. He's going to keep charging up through the field as we see this big battle still for second and third.
Kunze sits on the inside line, makes a big defensive gesture. Sorry, Barner defending on Kunze. Kunze was on the racing line. Barner was the man on the inside line, compromises his momentum all the way down here now into the Mercedes arena, but again puts himself in the middle of the road so that Kunze can't find a way through. Try the switchback, but it's useless because you're on the wrong side of the circuit then. And all of this, Mark Gasser is watching and enjoying, but waiting for them to slip up so he can find himself on the podium.
Yeah, as they're doing these laps and as they're counting down, they're probably eyeing up each other's strengths and weaknesses. You can watch them in the laps. Some are good in the first part of the lap, some are better in the others. And it's exactly this moment where it's like playing chess. You want to line up and work out where your opponent's at its weakest and where you're strong. And then it's about trying to make that move. And he's probably going to have one attempt in it, but you know, for him in third place, it's really difficult because obviously if he has a go and makes a mistake, he's going to lose that podium spot. So it's going to be really tough, and he's got to time that moment when he makes his move right, right, and as he goes very wide in turn 1.
Yeah, really have to judge the braking zone perfectly when you're trying to overtake someone. He doesn't need to go all the way down the inside and dive bomb. As long as he's alongside and prevents the other car from turning in, that's all that's really needed, right? It's kind of the old classic karting block pass.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen a lot of block passes going into the hairpin executed perfectly, but obviously when you're trying to outbrake someone, it's so easy to lock a wheel, which is obviously when you just lock up and then you find yourself sliding too quick into the corner, and that's what makes it really challenging and why you sometimes see them overshoot. Obviously, when you try brake later than you ever have, you get a bit tense and it's easy to make a mistake. So as we see, this battle just continues with such intensity. He's trying the same move again. Is he going to make it around the outside? That'll be a phenomenal move. Yeah, and now he's got the inside line for the second one. No, not quite.
Little bit of rubbing, just slowed him down. Tried to hang it around the outside, gave him the inside back corner, but the rubbing slowed it down enough, and Gasser coming down the inside of this very fast corner. Did well not to make contact there, but it slowed the both of them down. Kind of opportunistic from Mark Gasser. He should know better that that's not the place to do it. But they're kind of getting impatient now, aren't they, with less than 2 minutes remaining. And just behind this battle, Chian's now caught up with Ericsson, and we could see a change for 5th as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if they continue to fight, those other 2 behind, they might also join this group. There's only probably 2-3 laps left in this race, depending on when they clock down with the time. So there's not much time, and they can feel it. And as we spoke about, the guy in third place, if he almost made a mistake that cost him that podium spot. So he's going to try hunt down P2, but he's going to probably think long and hard where he makes that move. And that's what makes Hockenheim so great. You can make a pass and you can go side by side for a lap with each other without losing so much time. It's, like we said at the beginning of the show, it's one of the best places to go racing at in the world.
If you are watching this and you want to get involved and get yourself onto Race Room and get into the hot lapping contest for next week's competition, which will be at the Silverstone National Circuit, as we see side by side for what is that, 5th position, and the battle for second position continues. Martin Barner holding on right now, and again puts himself in the middle of the road. Side by side. This time he's going to try and go all the way around the outside. outside, shortly between the gate run of things. He's going to try and go around the outside of Barner. Is that going to work for him? No! How? How is it possible? Yes, maybe this is the opportunity for Gasser to try and at least go around the outside into the stadium. He's going to actually get himself a position here, and Kuntz has dropped down to 4th. Oh, as exactly what El Bamba said just a few moments ago, he has to be so careful, Julian Kuntz, to make the move stick, otherwise he could lose one, and he just has.
Yep. I totally missed what happened because my video froze, but I had to rely on you with the words, and now I see the result of it, and that's what makes it so tough in that position when you're in that middle. And let's see on the last lap, who's going to get that final podium position? This is going to be the big battle for the final lap.
I think Barner's at the moment done enough, although Mark Gasser will adopt a different philosophy to perhaps how Julian Kuntz was attacking Barner. We've had a couple of laps of Kuntz trying it. And now here comes Mark Gasser in 3rd position. Maybe not quite close enough for a dive bomb into the hairpin, but Kuntz may try and get himself back into the podium. He looks to the outside at the hairpin. That's not the right place to be.
No.
They both compromise each other.
Yeah, that poor run off the hairpin, that's probably cost him a shot at the podium. As we see, Chan is still trying to get into 5th place as well. It's been a frantic battle between this top 6.
Yeah, he's been trying for the last couple of laps to get past Jesper Eriksson. We're going to get on to the last lap next time by, because Banksy got over the line just before the clock went to 0. So one more opportunity for all of these drivers to sort themselves out.
And one person we haven't really talked about is the leader, Banksy. He's sort of creeped away. He's 3.5, nearly 4 seconds in front of this field, and he's done a fantastic job. As soon as he's got out in front, he's just pulled away.
Here he comes then, onto the last lap of the race. Ben Spanky, a very well-known driver in the race room world. Oh, that was the checkered flag. Sorry. I don't know quite what happened there, but the checkered flag falls, and Banky has taken victory ahead of Barner and Gasser. So no change there. Kuntz, Eriksson and Chan, and there is Jack Keithley over the line in 11th spot. So that's not going to do enough for him championship-wise. Here's Super GT in 19th spot. Steve Alvarez. Where does he sit? He's not quite the best of our influencers because I see Xavier Sanchez in 16th position. And of course, Jaroslav Honzik, who probably has a bit of a different advantage in 10th position, as he was a very well-known race room driver before he went YouTubing. And the rest of the drivers over the line to finish the day's action. As I said to you a little bit earlier on, if you want to do this next Tuesday on the Silverstone National Circuit in a 90s Porsche 911 964, then get hot lapping straight away, and you could find yourself on this grid with a load of influencers and the opportunity to drive against works drivers in a few weeks' time at the Grand Final. That was entertaining, wasn't it, Earl?
Yeah, that was a awesome race. That was up and down the field.
Gasser and Kuntz. Then Eriksson, Chan, Lerner and Yoyoski, with Jesky and Honzik rounding out the top 10. Jack Keithley got himself a point. Keely, Brett, Dixon and Stemperitsky. Top 15 point scorers. And oh, look at that. Xavier Sanchez just missing out on points for P16 as our best, our second best influencer. Super GT in 19th spot, just ahead of James West, another of our influencers, Game of Muscle, and then Hauser, Hild, Gaming Dave in 23rd, Alex Day, Failsafe.
Now 11 hours. We saw a lot of different conditions. Quite exhausting, to be honest.
But we're leading currently, so this is good news. We've got a lot of Porsches up in the top 50.
This is when the mistakes happen, when people get tired. after this night, we will see who is still running. You have to try to stay focused, be fast, but make no mistakes.
You've got to focus on what you're doing and what your car is strong at. There is no pleasure driving in the rain at night because the risk is so high. Conditions are changing every sort of hour, so we've got to go fast, we've got to stay on track, and we've got to do it for another 13 hours. This is endurance racing. This is endurance racing at Spa. This race is such a legendary event and the reason that we want to come out here and win it.
Yeah, we've lost 5 hours of racing. The race director decided to put full course yellow and then a red flag because it was almost undrivable. Now it's going to be a 5-hour sprint to the end. We'll push to try to get the victory. We are in victory contention. We are there.
It's a long day ahead of us. The race doesn't finish until 4:30 p.m.
Everything's changing lap by lap, and especially at the moment, Dennis is really, really fast.
We did it. For us as a driver, coming here, one race in a championship, winning it, perfect.
It was a great team effort. We end up in the first and second position.
Ending up on P1 was just what we dreamt of.
It's nice to remind ourselves of the real world that is out there when we can get ourselves back to racing. The Spa 24 Hours has been rescheduled for the end of October, so that's going to be quite a challenge, I reckon, racing at Spa. So to the results then, and who has qualified through to the finals in 3 weeks' time? Those that have will not appear in our next couple of weeks' action, and we'll get a chance to see some other people take victories. The points are combined from the 2 races, and the top 5 of the point scorers will go through to that final. So even if they might have had a really good 2 results, they need to have enough points to be in the top 5. And I can see already there's some names there that are going to have to race again. I think we're waiting for a screen for the results to come up. And then let's say thank you very much to Earl for getting up early, Earl, and enjoying some virtual racing with us.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it was awesome to tune in, and we managed to make everything work and get some watch some fantastic racing. The racing was really, really exciting. I really enjoyed the reverse grid race. Also to see all the liveries and, you know, just a community of people enjoying driving Porsches coming together. It's really, really entertaining. And it was quite cool to see some of my own liveries out there, and hopefully our livery made it into the top 5 and we can see it in the finale. But yeah, looking forward to doing this again. I'm really, really excited for the Cup car as well. So if anyone's wants to get out there, you should definitely get online, get into Race Room and start practicing, because I can tell you these guys put in a lot of effort. They really study, and if you want to make it into one of these races and try come race all of us, it's going to be a big fun time when they get to the final race and throw a couple of my colleagues in there, and we can comment on them, and you know, it's going to be a big fun thing that Porsche's organising for everybody, so definitely get online.
And not only can you do that and race with some real-world Porsche factory drivers, there's some hardware on offer as well. Thank you very much to our sponsor, Fanatec, for the prizes. Top 3 will receive podium Porsche wheel 911 GT3 R replica steering wheels for their Fanatec kit. If they don't have the wheelbase, there is a DD2 for the top 2 and a DD1 for the top 3 and a V3 pedals. Here are the top 5 then that have gone through into the finals. Ben's Bounty actually ending up as our winner of the day. Jack Keithley 2nd, Moritz Lerner 3rd, Mark Gasser 4th, and Emir Chian in 5th. So Earl Bamber Motorsport qualify already in week 1. Boom. Julian Kunter, Martin Barner, and Jesper Eriksson, Erhan Yujovski, and Jacob Brzezinski, and all the other drivers that were in today's action will have to try again next week. And next week, as Earl said, the 964 from the 1990s around the short Silverstone National Circuit. That goes frenetic. You can join us, same time, same place, where we'll do it all over again. Thank you so much, Earl, for waking up early from all the way across the other side of the world in New Zealand. My name is Ben Constanduris from France and the mountains. My internet's not that good either. Hope to join you again in the Porsche Community Legends Race Together series here on Race Room. Thank you very much for joining us. See you next week.